All right, guys, we just want to welcome back to the Over the College Bowl podcast. Today, me and Nick will be doing the Frisco Bowl, December 19th, Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. 9.5-point line in favor of the Roadrunners, live from Toyota Stadium in Frisco, Texas. Looking at the UTSA offense, 32 points per contest this season. Frank Harris certainly hasn't had the greatest of years, but he has still had 2,500 yards passing, 18 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, another 323 rushing and 4 scores. So certainly has not been as productive as in years past. It's been a tough year for him, though. Joshua Cephas, 82 grabs, 1,049 yards, 9 touchdowns, and Tyke Oleg Kellogg, 30 for 521 and another 7 scores. That duo really leads the way here. Yeah, we also have Devin McCoon, 39 grabs for 518 yards. Nice trio of pass catchers for Harris to work with here. What do you make of Frank, this season, and what's going to be a career-ending game for him, at least at UTSA, Nick? It's been a resilient quarterback who's at times been really productive, but his final game against Tulane wasn't all that impressive, and it had a chance for them to go to the conference title game, and he didn't look great.
Frank Harris has been a good story in college football. I really do think this has been a fun story for the guy. He's been around for a long time now, right? He joined UTSA in 2017, had a bunch of different red shirts. He missed the season in 2018 due to a knee injury, COVID, and all that sort of stuff kind of threw him around. But he is a very solid player, very popular in San Antonio, kind of a cult figure down there. It's been a really solid quarterback for this team. In general, has been a great leader. I really have enjoyed watching him throughout his career at UTSA. And while this season's not been the best, he still is a really solid player. And having him play in this bowl game is a big advantage for UTSA. 65% comp rate, 2,500 yards, 18 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Not a bad ratio at all. 140 passer rating, solid numbers. Good on the ground as well. They tried to limit him on the ground this year due to those previous knee injuries. 323 and 4 scores on the ground is not bad. Having a guy like Cephas as your number one wide receiver is a fantastic player to have. Cephas is an incredibly talented player, and you could see that with his receptions. 82 receptions. The next highest on the team is 39, so more than double the next highest wide receiver's receptions. They just love throwing it to Cephas. He's a matchup nightmare, a big physical, great wide receiver, 12.8 yards per grab. 1,050 yards plus 9 scores for him. Tyke Ogle Kellogg, a great player as well at the 521, 17.4 and 7 scores. So very efficient at the 17.4. Devin McCoon, 518 yards, 13.3 and 3 scores for him. They have some other guys down the depth chart. Willie McCoy, when he was playing, was a very solid player for him in limited role. This is an offense that has been productive in the past under their head coach. They've struggled this year at times. 31.7 points per game, though, is still an impressive number. 4.42 yards per attempt on the ground is a bit lower than you want to see, and 5.72 yards per play is a little bit lower. But this is still a very dynamic offense that has a great opportunity here against this Marshall defense.
This rushing attack is pretty balanced, I'd say. 4.2 yards per attempt, I think it's pretty good for them. And they have, 3 different guys at 400-plus yards this season. Rocco Griffin, Robert Henry leads the team with 9 touchdowns with his 551. Nick Barnes, 698 and 6 scores. So pretty much, adequately balanced team here. This offensive line, of course, they have some nice size. They haven't been the greatest in pass protection, but this is a unit that holds up for the most part. Look at the Marshall offense. The line is very big because I think some of the things that's going on with this offense, including Cam Francer transferring out, looks like he's done. 11 touchdowns, 11 picks, and apparently the fan base forced him out. At least that's what Charles Huff said. Looks like they're going to be turning to Cole Pennington, I would imagine, a guy who has 0 touchdowns and 6 interceptions this season, played a little bit in the back half of the year. He threw it 20-plus times in all of his games, 34-6 loss, 28-0 loss, and then they beat Georgia Southern 38-33. So for the most part, they've not really had great offensive success with him at the helm. That game against Georgia Southern, it was really about the rushing attack. 1,600 yards rushing this season, 1,043 of that and 14 scores about Rashawn Ali. Obviously, this is a phenomenal former player that came from the Power 5 level, and he's been terrific the last couple of years. Great addition here. I expect him to play in this contest. If he doesn't, they're going to be in a world of trouble because Caleb Coombs, their second-leading receiver, he's in the portal as well. DeMarcus Harris, 24 racks for 396 yards. He leads the way for them. And then you're going to probably turn to Jaden Harrison as well, 22 grabs, 278. So when you look at production for this game, Nick, if Ali doesn't play, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. But if he does, they have a chance here because this player is incredibly talented. And he can really change the game, especially with his ability to find the end zone.
It's a shame that Cam Fancher has been, pushed out by the fan base if those are true. You hate to see that in college. Obviously didn't have an incredible season, but he still is a solid athlete. The 2,100 100 yards passing, 11 touchdowns, 65% comp rate, 11 picks, not great, but still a solid player overall. Swinging down to Cole Pennington's kind of interesting. Of course, he's the son of Chad Pennington, who played at Marshall, a legendary quarterback. Was with the Jets for a while, played at Miami Dolphins as well. A legendary figure over there in Marshall, West Virginia. Chad Pennington is. That's kind of a cool moment if his son is going to get the opportunity to start here. If they lose Ali, like you said, that's a death blow to this offense. He is so talented. The 1,000 yards rushing, 5.1, and the 14 scores. He has 28 receptions as well for 213 and a score, 7.6 yards per catch. So he's used out of the backfield as well. This offense has not been great this year, 3.85 yards per attempt, and a lot of that really is just all Ali. 23.3 points per game, 5.3 total yards per play. This offense has struggled, and if they do lose their bell cow, they can be in a whole lot of trouble here. Cam Fancher was one of the leading highest rushers as well. He's the third leading higher rusher. Ethan Payne had 301 yards and 4.2 yards per carry. So this offense is going to be in serious trouble if they have no running back production out of Ali. The wide receiving room is not great for the Marshall Thundering Herd.
The good news is the interior offensive line is pretty stout, especially when it comes to pass blocking. Logan Osborne, Ethan Driscoll at left tackle has been pretty stout. Dalton Tucker at his right guard spot. Trent Holler, though, one of their best players. He's going to be in the transfer portal. Right tackle, Lloyd Willis. He's no good in pass protection, so I think there's certainly something to monitor there where they probably won't be up to par in this game like they typically have been. Like you said, the Marshall offense just has not been good this year. Now they're losing their starting quarterback who really wasn't all that great to begin with. You look at the defenses now, and I think this is why the line's a little bit too big for me, is the Marshall defense is still very good. 28 points per game certainly is not all that impressive, but they still play hard, and they still have some nice talented players. They haven't given up, over 400 yards the entire month of November. They did, go 2-2 in that stretch. So I think for the most part, this is a unit that held up for most part of the season. I think the offense also kind of gifts the other team some short fields that they've been, the opponents have been able to take advantage of. In the secondary, they have given up 21 touchdowns, 58% completion rating for the opponent. They've only given up one game of 300-plus yards this season. That was to Georgia Southern, a game they were able to win. UTSA, they're obviously going to look to do that. 40-plus passing attempts. They're going to want to try to generate some big plays through the air. So I think that's certainly notable for them. This is a secondary, though, that's still managed to, come up with 11 interceptions. Some nice players in the back end, including Micah Abraham, who was terrific. Deani Hill isn't all that bad himself. Nice part of this defense for sure. Those guys have combined for 23 pass breakups at their defensive back positions. I think there's some productive players off front in this defensive line that I think have certainly, kind of been disappointing on why the run defense hasn't been better, because Owen Porter, Elijah Alston, Turquez Lags, Eli Neal, all these guys in the front seven, and Sam Burton as well. There's some really good defensive linemen here. Neal, he's been around forever, highly productive linebacker. Steven Dix as well with his 58 stops. Very impressive part of this defense. Hasn't exactly translated to a lot of success here, Nick, going against an offensive line that has some good size. The run D has never really been awful, other than a couple of games this season, back half of the year. They've been quite polished, but I think this is an opportunity for them to struggle again, because in the games they lost in the middle part of the year, their offense did nothing, and it led to them struggling.
This is a defense that is solid overall, but has had some issues this season. 28.2 points per game, 4.43 yards per attempt on the ground, which is certainly something to highlight considering this is a rushing attack for UTSA that has some production potential. Deani Hill, 52 total tackles, 10 pass breakups, 1 pick for him. Micah Abraham, 13 pass breakups, 3 picks, 31 tackles. Great numbers from Abraham. 13 pass breakups is very impressive. Josh Motton, 28 total tackles, 6 pass breakups, and a pick for him. Amiron Foster, the true freshman, 24 total tackles, 1 pass breakup for him. He's been really strong at strong safety. Eli Neal, 85 total tackles, 9.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 pass breakups, and a pick. Coming off the edge there, J.J. Roberts, 73 total tackles, 2 interceptions, 1 pass breakup for him. Steven Dix, 58 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 1 sack for him. Owen Porter, the big guy in the backfield, 57 total tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 5 sacks for Porter. And Elijah Alston, 41 total tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. This is a very productive team. Mike Green, 40 total tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. So this team can certainly get in the backfield and wreak havoc. Which is going to be the key to success here is, can you make the quarterback Harris for UTSA uncomfortable? We saw Tulane have success in doing that. They put Harris under pressure immediately, and he forced himself into turnovers and made mistakes early on in that game with his spot in the conference title game on the line. I think this is a great opportunity for this Marshall defense to make Harris uncomfortable and make him make mistakes.
Looking at the UTSA defense, they're going to be without their top player, Trey Moore, as he's in the portal. There's still some good players here. Joe Evans has been an elite run defender up front. Jamal Wigdon Ligon, that is, at linebacker, has been terrific for them as, a run stopper and a pass rusher. Jamori Robinson coming off the edge. Ronald Triplett, he's going to have to step up and be bigger in this game. Brandon Brown. They've had some nice rotation on this side of the ball. Weren't all that great against Tulane against the run. They tightened up a little bit in the second half. For the most part, only 3 games this year they allowed 200 plus. One was the Army, who had 65 attempts, and then Tennessee obviously had a pretty easy day with them. For the most part, though, in conference play, they're really good against the run. Rasheen Ali, he's going to be one of the best backs they've faced all season long. And the interior offensive line obviously has been really good as well. So I think if there's any advantage potentially for the opponent, it's going to be running between the tackles. Trey Morris, phenomenal edge rusher. I don't think you're going to have to put much pressure on this quarterback, Nick. You're just going to want to sit in coverage and see what happens. I think they certainly can find negative plays that cause him to be in longer passing situations. But they also have some nice guys in the back end who can step up. Cam Alexander at this 13 pass breakups. Nick Troy Fortune, a veteran who's been very good for them. This seems like a pretty good matchup. The defense isn't elite by any means, but I think about 25 points per game, 370 yards per contest, and what they can do against the run, especially those negative plays. It's pretty adequate and sound numbers, and that's why they were in contention to win their conference. And I think here it sets them up to do damage, even without Trey Moore.
I'm very impressed with this defense. 24.7 points per game, 3.75 yards per attempt on the ground, 5.16 yards per play. Good numbers overall. I think this is a defense that has some physically talented players who get the job done. Trey Moore, obviously not playing, is a big miss for this team. He's a very talented player who can add a lot to this defense, but they still have some solid pieces who can step up and get the job done. Ken Robinson is a good leader, the leading tackler for this team as a free safety. He's very good in the backfield, 59 total tackles total for him. I like what I've seen at him. Cam Alexander, 33 total tackles, 13 pass breakups, 1 pick for him. Nick Troy Fortron, 24 total tackles, 7 pass breakups, 2 picks for Fortron. Good numbers there. Dwayne Griffin, 25 total tackles, 3 pass breakups, and a pick for him. I like some other production. Martavius French, 56 total tackles, 4 tackles for loss. Jamal Ligon, 56 total tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss, and a sack. So that they kind of struggle at times to get into the backfield and get the sack number. Sack number is a little disappointing when you lose 14 sacks or more. That's obviously disappointing, but this is a unit that has some good players to step up. They're solid against the pass. 231 is not the worst number in the world. They're good against the run, 137.6 points per game or yards per game, and overall 24.7 points per game. I do like this defense to hang in here against a banged up and beat it offense.
I'm going to final thoughts on the prediction. Over the last 6 games of the year for Marshall, they lost games by scores of 20-9, 34-6, 31-9, 28-0. The 2 games they won, they put 30-plus points in. This line's too big with how good this defense is. I think Harris, he's looking for a bang in this finale. They got to be physical versus Rishon Ali. They're going to have to ride behind the strong D, and I think it's going to allow them to keep this one close. But I'm not really counting on it. I think they're going to have too many missing pieces on defense here. If Ali does play, it's certainly going to be a big boost for them, but I'm not sure if he can do it all by himself. Too many opportunities for the Roadrunners. They should easily win this game. 8-point margin for me. The Thunder and Herd covering seems like the best bet. And, them even scoring 20 points, though, definitely seems harsh. It seems like, it's kind of disrespectful to the opponent. But I think they're going to be able to create some short fields on, special teams or turnovers. They're going to do something to keep this game a little close. No way they win it, though, Nick. I'm taking UTSA outright, and I think a lot of points will be on it as well.
I'm taking UTSA. I like them to cover the 9.5. I think they will win this game by 2 touchdowns at this point. I just think this offense is too good. Going against a really stale offense for Marshall that just has so many missing pieces, especially if Ali doesn't play. This could be game over for this Marshall offense. If Ali doesn't play, the 9.5 is basically free money at that point, in my opinion. It's going to be tough for this Marshall offense to really be able to be productive. Yes, the defense is strong, and they may make this a contest early on, but I think they're going to run out of steam very quickly and will find themselves downstream against this Frank Harris offense that has nice production potential. I like UTSA to win this game. Should be a good crowd for them as well. They're playing in Dallas, in the state of Texas, not terribly far from San Antonio, so they should have a pretty solid crowd that can travel up to that soccer stadium, Toyota Stadium, and go and enjoy this game. Marshall, I can't imagine their fan base is very strong in North Texas. So I like this game a whole lot for UTSA. I think they have a great opportunity here to get a bowl win and one last win for Frank Harris. He heads off to whatever's next for him, potentially maybe a roster spot in the NFL or just kind of figuring out what's going on in his life next. Had a great career at UTSA and been fun to watch.
Yep, certainly a good opportunity in terms of that home crowd. That's going to be it for this episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.